Now, next up is Geoff. Geoff, how you going?
Hey, bud. Yeah, going well yourself?
Yeah, good, mate. How's Tasmania?
Beautiful, perfect one day and better the next. They tell
Looks
me.
a bit chilly where you are to me, buddy.
Mate, I have got the jumper on. That's true. I've got the fire on downstairs. It's a little bit of a icy into. Well, it's the third week of spring, I suppose, isn't it? Should be better, but it's pretty typical for Tassie. I doubt that you're much different, mate. To be honest, you just got
mate.
the heater on, haven't you?
No, heat pump's not on, mate. But the tortoise, the turtle tank, the one that stays on the ground, it keeps this room reasonably warm anyway. But daylight savings today, mate, stayed alive.
Oh
yeah. Next week for you guys. But yeah, nice, mate. It feels like summer's coming. I look at Ash and I think, oh, he's got winter coming. That must suck. Summer's coming far better.
It's almost tomorrow for you as well, isn't it?
It is. It is not far away from tomorrow. I've got an early start too tomorrow. Mate, 4 charts, or how many charts are you going to do, mate? What are you going to take us through today?
Yeah, look, I can come up with 4, I think. I think PH has been reading my script, though. So I'll have a little squiz around the CAD Swissy as well, because I think that is a buy. I agree with that. I will share screen and show you what's up.
Cheers, mate.
If I can find the control panel, of course. It's disappeared again.
Look, I know when you're at home, so watching the show, this stuff must look quite frustrating for you guys. But honestly, what happens with Zoom is the control panel jumps in behind the screen that you're sharing. It can be quite hard to find. So just literally moving the screen around, you guys are watching, and you guys can't see it moving. But to try and get to the back, to try and find the screen's got to share. And fortunately for the company, Geoff and myself are technical geniuses.
They just ask us everything, don't they? How do we fix this problem?
But we've got it sorted, mate. There's some charts. Let's get to the charts. Eh?
The good part is we're geniuses starting the problems as well. I think that might be the issue.
If we want a degree in that, we would certainly get it.
Aussie CAD. Look, interesting about the Aussie. I don't know, honestly, in my heart of hearts, why the Aussie would be tanking last week. But it did, and I think it had a lot to do with what the Deputy Governor of the RBA had to say. But I heard Ainslie touch on this as well, and I've been talking about this for the longest time, when they started putting tariffs on things like barley and beef. This is China I'm talking about. And through all of that, we saw the Aussie rally, yet we are now, in my mind, certainly forming a top here. And that top has been broken last week, in fact, on Thursday of last week, where we saw price break the bottom of this range. I expect that's going to continue, but it's a bit tough to just jump in here now, although part of my strategy dictates that if I see a bar like that crossing a trade line like that, it's pretty much a dominant breakout. And for that reason, I think there's the potential for even just to put an entry here and put your stops above the highs. I don't think that would be a stupid move, but from a risk to reward point of view, or reward point of view, I'd probably be looking to wait for a retest of the broken trend line, which of course is next week's weekly pivot or tomorrow's weekly pivot, which is that white line that you see on your chart. If I have a look at the bigger picture on this, it kind of contradicts what I'm saying, because we've been in this channel for a fair while, a couple of breakouts to the low side. And generally when I'm looking to come from the bottom of a range, which I call a channel, anything that's got 2 lines on it, or even 3 or 4, I don't care if it's a circle. If they're bouncing off, then I tend to look to the other side. And for that reason, I'm a little bit conflicted, because we haven't come to the high side of this off the bottom yet. So yeah, I'm not 100% behind this, but this is too big a bar really to ignore. Why it has happened is an interesting scenario, and I don't really know that there's too much. Well, I think the market's actually read too much into what has been said by the deputy governor, or whatever they call him. I can't even remember his name. So the point is, technically, We've got a double top or a triple top, if you like. We've broken not only the trend line, but also the bottom of that range. And I expect that this will continue to fall to where? Yeah, that's always a great question, isn't it? But the strongest level of support and resistance that I can find underneath this in recent times this year, let's call it 2020, is down around the 90-60 level. That's what makes it attractive. And even if you, as I say, traded that big breakout bar and put your entry below that and put your stops above here, you've probably still got, no, you haven't still got, you've got 1-to-1 only. That's not the worst trade to take, mind you, but I think there's probably better on offer in terms of a reward to risk. I'll pause there if anybody wants to ask any questions on Aussie CAD before we move on to kind of a counterpart to that, which is CAD Swiss, which PH touched on a little bit earlier, and I'm in full agreement with him.
Geoff, great to hear that we are seeing things the same way. I'm honoured to great minds think alike. I do look at, I try to look at as many crosses as I can to try to figure out the strongest versus the weakest. And this is one of the key charts for me to say the Aussie is weak and the CAD less so. Yeah. So if
whatever the reason, it's certainly clear, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, to me it's clear, and obviously to you it is as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, coming off the top there, you've probably got very little choice but to go short, I would have thought. Aussie CAD. I've got to have that bias going into tomorrow anyway, regardless of what else I see.
Yeah, there is some room for a retracement there, but that'll be perfect because it'll make a lower high and then go down for the next leg. I'm saying it like it's going to happen. It's likely to make a lower high, and if it does, then it's likely to create a second leg down.
Yep,
and
agreed, mate.
Effectively, make a sort of a not so clean double top.
Yeah, it's pretty cool in here. I think that's clean enough for me. I'd be more than happy to call that a double top, if not a triple top. The key level here right now, of course, is where we are. And you can see how many times we've attempted to break through that. Nice little ascending triangle there that got broken as well. And this level here is, stands out like the proverbial greyhound's testicles as far as I'm concerned. And that's tomorrow's weekly pivot. If we can come back to there, then yeah, that's a sell for sure. But as I said, I think even on the weekly chart, you could take that on that bar there. I think you could trade underneath it and put your stops above the high if you wanted. Makes sense to me.
Yeah, mate. Yep.
So whilst we're talking about making sense and great minds think alike, let's put it that way, it's very, very difficult to ignore what I'm seeing here on CAD Swiss as well. And similar to what I've just described, we've just had a massive breakout of a level that's been hanging in there for, almost 3 weeks, I suppose. And if I go to the bigger picture on this one, it's a little bit hard to see because of the decoupling of the euro to the Swissy back in 2015. But if you take a look through that line, which is tomorrow's weekly pivot, mind you, we have broken below it. We've come back above it and we've retested it to the low side. This looks to me, for all intents and purposes, as though it's going back that way, off this low, if you like, and now we put in a higher low. As I said, it's a bit tough to see on the monthly chart, but when you bring it back to the weekly chart, you can see it pretty clearly. There's a beautiful tweezer bottom sitting there, followed by a higher high, followed by a higher low, and now a classic little slingshot setup that we've got sitting there as well, where we've approached the trend line and pull back away from it. Not really the third test on the weekly chart, but we can certainly drill down a little bit further. And everywhere I look, I see the same thing. I see an approach and a pullback, and that pullback's getting less. And that, of course, gives us the higher low, sorry. And now we're looking to take on that trend line. So I think there's really a trade to the trend line, if nothing else. That's the daily chart I'm looking at. I'd really like to see a pullback to the top of the range, frankly. This week's weekly pivot is the white line. And if we were to be so luxuriated, if I can put it that way, and I'm not sure that's in Webster's, but it'll do for now. It's in Geoff's. We'll pull back to here and look to enter the market here and trade it to the trend line in the first instance. And if we're fortunate enough to break through there, then there's a nice reward available to us as well. So fully in agreement once again on CAD Swissy. I see this on a longer term as potential for a little bit more toing and froing inside this area here. So I'm not 100% sure that we're going a long, long way, but this level here looks pretty cool to me, where we've had these highs. It's a strong resistance level. Trading there, taking profit there, taking profit there, and I think it doesn't really matter if we don't go through there, as long as we've got 2 profits in the bank. And if it then comes back underneath here, then I'll certainly look to trade it in the opposite direction. But I think that's certainly something that I'll be watching from tomorrow. If anyone's got any questions on that, but I doubt it, because I think we've made a pretty good case for it, PH. The third chart, therefore, that I am going to have a look at is one that we traded for quite some time. Well, I'd have to say a few months ago, because that's when we entered the trade. And we were looking at, if I can go probably to the biggest time frame, the monthly chart once again, you can see how pound Kiwi has just stayed inside what I call a range here, which is the ascending channel, and very, very difficult for this to break out of that. And every time it goes to a boundary, it comes back inside the range. So boundary here, back, boundary back, boundary back. I have no reason to think that this is going to change anytime soon. We got into a trade, as I said, I can't remember when it was, but it was back here somewhere, or maybe even back here. No, back here. We got into, so it's only about 3 or 4 months ago that we got into this trade, and I was expecting to go to here. Geez, I'm greedy, but I really did expect that to be the case. We decided not to trail our stops too tight. In fact, I think we took 2 lots of profit and didn't move our stop at all. And despite that 800 odd pips that we were up, it came back and took out our stop and entry. In profit, I've got to say, but we should have made much more out of it. So I'm still watching this and watching it quite closely. And again, similar to what I've described on Aussie CAD, I think that this is possible even to take this trade now. If you were to enter above that, this is the monthly chart I'm talking about. If you were to enter above that, you've got 950 pips of risk, but you've still got, 2,000 if it went straight to there. And if it takes its time, you've nearly got 3,000 pips. So it could still be a 3-to-1 trade, even on a monthly chart. I think there's probably better rewards, as I said, again, similar to Aussie CAD. There's probably better rewards available than that. So I'll be looking for this to pull back. Again, same old story. Once we've had that big rally, then I'd certainly be looking for it to pull back to get into it. The issue that I have at the moment is, where's it going to pull back to, and what am I going to trade it off? That's the daily chart. I've really got nothing to go by here in terms of entries. So I'm probably going to have to sneak down to smaller time frames as the week progresses. And maybe even, I don't know, I don't see anything available to me at the moment, but I'm very, very keen to trade it, as I want to get that 800 pips back, frankly. I don't know. I really don't know. The weekly pivot's up here now. So a pullback doesn't seem likely, but if I do get it, maybe that level is here, in here somewhere, where we've already been. And that confuses the issue. I just don't see an entry for us at the moment. But I'll certainly be through the week. Those of you who are in the YouTube shows, or certainly in the US session, and my strategy group, I'll be definitely looking for this throughout the week. I've just got to see a pullback somewhere, and I'm not sure. Well, maybe that level is it. Maybe it is. We will see. But yeah, I'm dead set keen to get into it. That's pound Kiwi long, And again, I think the reward is substantial if we can find a way into that. The last one is Euro Swissy. Now, we're already in this trade, and this is extremely, extremely unusual for me. I've never traded this in my life before, but I saw a couple of weird things. And again, going back to this crazy chart where we've got this decoupling of the euro to the Swissy back in 2015, we came back to where that all began in May of 2008. I think it was May of 2000. It looks like May anyway. It's 2018. Since then, it's been a very, very gradual, but certainly a determined, if you like, trend to go, and I won't say challenge the low, but certainly challenge this area here. It's failed again to do that after it failed here and here. I think it's now given me a false break of that area if I go a little bit tighter. And this is what I saw last week. I saw this price dip below here, then come back above it and retest it with this bar here. It also sets up a nice little slingshot scenario again, approach, pullback, approach, pullback, approach, pullback on this candle here. In the meantime, on the weekly chart, it doesn't look so sexy, but if I go back to that monthly chart, you can see that it has broken above that serious trend line. That's a monthly trend line that goes back to March of 2018. So we have broken and closed above that level. In the same breath, if you like, we've come off the bottom, big bullish engulfing bar, higher high, higher low, and now we're looking to challenge that higher high again. The interesting part for me is that we've now bounced off the bottom of that rectangle. So no matter what chart I look at, I'm seeing things that I like. Break of the trend line after a big bullish engulfing bar on the monthly. On the weekly, I've come off the bottom of the range. And yes, we've been here many times before. Bang, 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 bang. Can't get there. Why is this the time? I don't know if it is the time, but it looks to me like there's a trade, certainly, and we're in that trade now, up to this level here. And what happens after that, of course, we as yet don't know. Even if you're not in this trade, and the weekly pivot's up here tomorrow, which is a little bit of a shame. And I'm not sure how it can be, frankly, but it is. Maybe I've got that wrong. Doesn't seem right. Can't be right. Let me get rid of that. I think I've got the wrong level on there. So, sorry, I'll take that back. That can't be the weekly pivot tomorrow. But we've had a massive breakout of this trend line here. Have we had a retest of it? Let me just fix that up. Not quite. But if I wasn't in this trade, I think it's even worth going long above that candle with your stop loss below it, maybe sneak it below the monthly pivot. Haven't got much left in the month, of course, but a couple of days, and there's a strong high here and a target up here in my humble opinion. So where do I see this going if it does go? Well, anywhere, any bloody where. But I definitely see this level here as probably first stop. And that's 110.29. We're currently at 108.02 or something. So there's another couple of hundred pips there. Even if we go to the what I consider to be the least the least profitable or potential that we could possibly find. If we're really right here and get a little bit lucky, then that level there, 114.43, which is 600 pips away, looks really, really interesting as well. So that's kind of why I wanted to get into this. I see the false break of this level. I see nice slingshot setups wherever I look, and on every chart, it looks to me as though this is going long. I'm happy that we've taken profit, I've got to say, because it's banging its head on a resistance level here as well. But that's the fourth of the week, mate, that I'll be looking at from tomorrow. And as I say, very, very unusual one for me. I've never traded that in my life, but it stood out like, as I say, the proverbial little dog's testicles.
Excuse me, guys. Mate, sounds good. Been a great show, guys. Gosh, I'm going to leave it back to you for a second, Geoff, and grab a. I think I'm okay. I'm slowly choking to death here.
Okay. I can talk about euro pound that Paul was talking about before.
Mate,
If that's
Actually, Geoff, I wanted to say something about Euro Swissy. It's like you, it's not, it's not a currency pair that I like to trade a lot because it's often pretty spiky and volatile. If you go to a daily chart, that you can see the volatility, especially since it's really gone nowhere in the last few weeks. But I do like, I have noticed that the Euro Swissy reacts to changes in risk sentiment in the markets. So, for example, when some bad news comes out, this thing can spike down, right? Meaning the Swissy gets stronger and the euro gets weaker. And when good news comes out, and it doesn't even have to be related to the euro, but when good news comes out, often I see the euro, taking ground away from the Swissy. So for me, it's also got a bit of a bullish feel to it after, so many weeks of really going nowhere. But going nowhere means it's also not going down. And it does look like, and if you pulled up some RSI or something on this, I'm sure you'd be just above the 50.
What's that mean?
Oh, it's an oscillator, but
I know what it is. I'm just pulling your leg.
Looking at the price action here, I just suspect that the relative strength would be just over 50 or so. So I think it could pop. Don't know how much it will pop, but it does have the tendency when it goes, it really goes.
Only one thing concerns me really, and it's this: false break, higher false break of my rectangle. That's my one of my favorite patterns to trade short, but it didn't break short, and that's what gives me. If that doesn't happen, then to me something else is going on, and when something else is going on, I want to be part of it. So it's kind of counterintuitive, but that's what I see, and I see all those things on the chart that are saying to me this can break to the high side.
Cheers, guys.
Whether the RSI says yes or no, I don't know, but I say yes.
Well, that's if you say yes, you say yes.
That's all that counts.
That's all that counts. Cheers, guys. Thanks very much, and thanks for covering for me there for a few minutes. I'm still going to need to make this reasonably brief. Thanks, everybody, for being with us this week. Been another great show. Thanks to the contributors for coming along and sharing your information, and as always, and thanks to the attendees for coming along and making it great. Don't forget to like the shows and subscribe to the YouTube channel. And we will see you back next week with Chloe joining us as our special guest next week. Geoff will be back. Thank you, PH, Paul Hutton, for turning up as a guest today. Also, thank you to Ainslie, to Alexis, to Geoff, to Ash, and to Shukri for bringing your expertise in. It is much appreciated. Okay, guys, have a wonderful week. And remember, try and trade, make good decisions and you'll trade well, and don't have peanuts before you present. See you guys. Bye.
No, needs a bourbon, I think.
No trader chat tonight, guys. I've got an early start in the morning. See you guys. Bye.
Very cool.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, Helen.